Hi, guys. Welcome to Real Food Recovery. I must say hello to Jamie before we jump in because we have got a very exciting topic today. How's it going, sister?
Going good, going good.
Good.
Yeah, this topic is just the name alone is a very provocative topic.
Yeah,
So I'm
true,
excited to talk about it.
true. Today, we're going to do a book review on The Pleasure Trap. The authors, Dr. Doug Lisle, a psychologist, and Dr. Alan Goldhamer, he's a chiropractor and health educator. They explain how the modern food environment hijacks our natural instincts, leading us leading us to a cycle of addiction and poor health. After reading this book, I thought there were so many wonderful talking points that we should do a podcast on all of the highlights that I came across. And short of having the authors on themselves, we could not get started yammering about this soon enough. And Jamie, you've read it too, right?
Yes, I have. Long time ago, but yes. And I think that when I think of this book, I think it's like I said, a provocative title that gets me thinking about the fact that addiction or addictive behaviors around food and substances that masquerade as food
Mhm.
is really, not our fault. So this whole idea of it, the pleasure trap exists because it really is designed to trap us in this state of constantly seeking pleasure from out substances and people, places, and things outside of ourselves.
Yeah.
Um, and so again, it is a fascinating book because it delves into the psychology, written by co-authored by a psychologist, Doug Lisle, and it looks at the psychology of why we get hooked, but also his writing partner is also his best friend, Dr. Alan Goldhamer, an MD, or I think technically he's a DO. He's not an MD, but he looks at the biology of how these foods trap us. And again, looking at unhealthy foods specifically. So these ultra processed, highly processed foods and how they literally can lock us into this constant cycle of craving and addictive responses when we eat them. So the book really talks about that humans were wired to seek pleasure. So
Mhm.
for those of us, myself included, that are used to pushing away that pleasure seeking brain, because my false belief is that my pleasure seeking brain made me, fat, sick, and nearly dead. And that's absolutely a false belief because the reality is that, our pleasure seeking brains are doing exactly what they were programmed to do, which is to keep us alive. And
Yeah.
keeping us alive means seeking pleasure, not only pleasure in food, but pleasure in procreation, pleasure in being above the ground every day, all day.
Mhm.
Um, so again, when we think about the pleasure-seeking brain and the fact that in addition to the pleasure-seeking brain, we also want to conserve energy. So we have this drive to seek pleasure and this drive also to not do much for it, which describes every husband I've ever met. Um, this was, that's my, uh, Doug, don't listen to that. This was beneficial for survival in ancient environments where food was scarce and physical effort was necessary. However, in today's world of abundant, highly palatable processed foods, those instincts really can lead us astray.
Mhm.
So when we add to that, the trap is a result of our natural desires, right? And these natural desires of seeking pleasure, avoiding pain, right? That is the human condition: seek pleasure, avoid pain. The processed food companies, who, by the way, in case you missed it on our 83 other episodes, the processed food companies have taken the tobacco addiction model and moved it over to foods. So they have this marketing juggernaut. They have this whole campaign system and research system and manufacturing process that they moved into food. So they literally had a proven track record with seeking pleasure from addictive substances like nicotine and tobacco. Well, I don't know if tobacco is as addictive as nicotine, but I digress. And they had, they'd already experimented with different levels of sugar and additives in these cigarettes. Then they were able to say, okay, we can get people hooked on this pleasure trap. around food too, because it turns
Mhm.
out that we can engineer food to be as addictive and as pleasure seekable as cigarettes, and oh my gosh, more so. It triggers other areas of the brain that we didn't even know could be triggered by outside things other than real foods, sex, survival.
Mhm.
So they realized that they not only had a palatable ingredient, palatable foods, they now could go from palatable and survive foods that promoted survival. From that, they could go to hyper palatable
Yeah.
and foods that people couldn't stop eating. So again, this is why we're here, because when you talk about hyper palatable, ultra processed foods or processed foods in general, we're talking about foods that drive up dopamine, and they drive up dopamine in super normal ways. So it's not just like a little squirt in the brain, like, oh, that was nice. It's like, oh my God, this is a
Fire
major
hose.
hit of dopamine. I can't function unless I get another hit of this level of dopamine. So it always reminds me of that phrase, the poison is in the dose. And the food companies thought of that and capitalized on that. They didn't think of it, they capitalized on it, and they still do today.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. And what you're saying is when talking about how they engineer it to the highest bliss point, they literally say, how can we put as much salt, oil, sugar in something to make it the most palatable, reach that highest bliss point without making it too much? I mean, they're purposely, it's just diabolical. So,
Yes.
but I do love about how this starts out talking about what you eat, the drugs you use, and the lifestyle choices you make are going to play this major role in determining the quality and length of your life. And why I love this so much is that it voids that excuse of genetics. So many people say, well, I'm heavy just because my parents
Right.
were blah, blah, blah. So I have heard the saying that genetics load the gun, but it's lifestyle that pull the trigger. Totally believe in that. Every time I'm in this discussion about aging, I always end it with, I am not going down without a fight. I am not going to let genetics determine my outcomes. Some might call me obsessive, but I think I'm just doing whatever it takes to live a long, healthy, happy life. Emphasis on the healthy. I really don't want to live this long, miserable life. That's a prison sentence. I can't imagine waking up every day and crippling my way through the day. I don't want to do that. So
Agreed.
what do I do instead? I prep my food in advance. I sleep 8.5 hours a night. I exercise 6 days a week. I have my spiritual practice and I cherish my relationships and fulfill my responsibilities, not to mention scrapbooking. I love that. It used to be of all my kids and now it's really of all my grandkids. So
Mm.
I just do those things that invite or set up circumstances for me to flourish in. And that
Mhm.
really has made a huge difference in my life. You want to weigh in on your thoughts around that, genetics versus environment?
Yeah, well, and I used to believe that my genetics were my destiny, because
Mhm.
for me, on my mom's side, the obesity was very prevalent. My
Mhm.
mom's father's side, the entire side was obese. And my mother's maternal side actually had fairly normal genetics until her grandfather, my mom's grandfather, remarried after the loss of his wife, remarried and brought in sort of very genetically challenged, right? Obesity, people with high proclivity to obesity. So then it looked like, even though they weren't blood, it looked like we had it on both sides of my mom's family, which actually wasn't true. However, genes are genes. And I also saw a little bit of it on my dad's side, but not as prevalent on my mom's. But I saw that I was the only one at a certain time, most of my youth, the only one in the family of my generation, right? Of my brother, myself, my cousins, all of us, born of that, Gen X, Gen Y, maybe late boomer, early Gen X. I was the only one who struggled, the only one who had excess weight, the only one who could look at food and gain weight, the only one. Um, And that was just how I grew up. So I really believed that, okay, I got grandpa's genetics and all of his sisters and his mom, and I just got that gene and I couldn't really do anything about it. And then the older I got, in my early 30s, I was so sick and so obese that I was like, yeah, I don't want to go down this way. Like my whole life has been spent fighting this demon of food and weight, and I don't want to go down this way. So that's when I began to reshape my health. And I'm going through another version of that now in a totally different way for a totally different reason. And I bet just like in 2008, I had to totally rethink my life. I am doing that again here in 2024, totally rethinking my life, things that I thought I would never do for my health I'm doing. And my point is that both times in '08 and it seems like this year as well, lifestyle is able to trump genetics.
Yeah.
So, but here's the interesting part. What I've learned, and this could just be and this is an N of one, and it could just be me, but I have learned that it takes, when your genetics are so predisposed, and mine are, to storing fat very easily, and PS also building muscle very easily. Because I store fat so well. And I have a lot of protein to work with. When I eat a certain way, I can build a lot of muscle quickly. But again, double-edged sword. So when I think about how much effort I have to put into gaining weight, it's not much. Not much at all. If you flip it, how much effort I have to put into my lifestyle to find balance, to heal something, to coax my metabolism in a different direction, to utilize all of my food in a way that promotes health and longevity instead of disease. I have to put exponentially more effort into that lifestyle than I do into my genetics.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying this is true for everyone, but that has been my experience.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and it's a good reminder. One of the other things that they talk about in there is how human and animal life, as we've mentioned, that for them, the primary goals are the pursuit of pleasure, the avoidance of pain, and the conservation of energy. So I totally had to laugh at this one, not because I don't believe it, but because it's so true and describes us so well. We are no different than the animal kingdom in this sense. So we also have the moods of happiness and unhappiness that motivate us to continue successful behaviors in these pursuits. What jumped out for me was how often I conserve energy on purpose. Like this is true. I find the closest parking spot to the front door at the gym. I got one this morning. I'm like, woohoo.
Yeah.
It's so true though.
But
And I
but
can
it's human. It's not just you, it's human.
I know. It's I can hear myself saying, I just want to sit down. There's a reality star who said to the other girl, "Do you want to sit down?" She goes, "Oh yeah, I just love to sit." So this directly ties into the avoidance of pain because my legs are tired and I want to relieve them, but I am totally motivated by the pleasure pain balance. How does that show up for you in your life, Jamie?
Well, again, it's something that of trying to avoid or control my humanity is kind of useless. So I'd rather use it for good than try to fight against it. But I have to learn. I had to learn as I aged, especially, that I'm not able to do the things in the way that I did them before
Mm-hmm.
to get the same outcome. So it's almost like as I age, I actually go more towards not even balance, but striving to have rest, which would, I think, be more pleasurable than pushing. Have periods of stress, much smaller periods of stress compared to periods of rest.
Mm-hmm.
That, as I age, seems to be better for me, which was a total shock because I spent 40 plus years going the other direction,
Mm-hmm.
where I was pushing and pushing and pushing and going and going and going. And it just, it ended up creating more stress than it needed to create on my body and made everything that I was doing harder. So the pleasure trap, this book that we're talking about, brings up this sort of biological purpose of life, the whole purpose that we're here is for survival and reproduction, right? Which is why, if you think about it, survival and reproduction, we are geared towards pleasure and avoiding, and also geared to avoid pain. That would make sense, because those two things, the outcomes of those two things, or the inputs for those two things, are usually related to pleasure. So happiness, again, is a motivator as well, because again, happiness equals pleasure in our brains. And that idea that you can sort of have this feeling of pleasure, feeling of contentment, is something that we all strive for on a daily basis, which is why so many people who struggle with constant states of anxiety or depression in their brains, those can really mess with their humanity. It's not just about, oh, gee, I'm feeling a little blue today. It can really mess with their humanity, because those brain states, those states of inflammation, those states of imbalances leading to symptoms of depression and anxiety. And there could be a lot of reasons for that. We're understanding more and more. There's a lot of reasons for that. And I say brain states when I don't just mean in our head. I mean both brains, the gut brain and the brain, the first brain. These states are not natural to us, and we know when we're in this place of like, okay, I'm not able to seek pleasure, or I'm trying to and it's not coming. That can really totally pull the rug out from under you as a human. And that is why, to accept that we're living in the pleasure trap, literally that we're designed to be seeking pleasure and avoiding pain, that can bring a lot of healing to people and remove a lot of shame and a lot of self-judgment off of people who think that they should be going and working and striving and hurting to get things in life, when that's not how we're designed.
Yeah, true. For me, the things that bring me happiness are the simple pleasures of life. I don't need big things. I love my routine. I love how I start and end my day. I like what's going on in between it and the people that I'm connecting with. I do like working hard. And by hard, I mean feeling like I've accomplished something at the end of the day. And all of these things just bring me contentment. And that's, for me, the biggest happiness. I actually shy away from those high highs, and I'm most comfortable just kind of skipping along at this steady pace. Maybe the word I equate with happiness is a state of calm. And that's when I'm at my best, when my recovery is running on all cylinders, and I can just enjoy life at this steady pace. Those high highs and low lows make me really nervous. I just kind of like to skip along there in the middle way. And that's when I feel my best.
And so if you think about, our mechanisms, right? What brings satiation? It really can only work properly if we eat foods that are consistent with how we are designed as humans.
Yeah.
So again, there's a lot of debate on what our human bodies are designed to eat, right? I've spent both a lot of time on both sides of this fence, on the plant-based side and the animal-based side. And I'm not here to argue either one, but my point is that if you truly find for your specific body and your specific needs at a specific point in time, if you are eating foods that are consistent with your design and your needs, you will improve and feel better over time, not worse. And it's important to know that, as I think that really important to know in this whole idea of satiation, that sometimes we think it's about food or calories that we're missing, right? If we're craving and we're not satiated after a meal or after a day, a day of eating, we'll think it's because of calories, and therefore we'll seek more food. And sometimes it's not calories at all. It's actually nutrients that we're craving, or it's connection, or it's time, time with our inner family, or it's time with our real family, any of those things. There are true reasons behind satiation. And when you're eating real foods that are consistent with human needs, we thrive. And to find that balance for each person is a very personal journey. because it can change over time and changes over life. It has for me for sure. So again, the solution, right, is not learning how to eat less of a particular food, but it's learning how to eat the most kinds of food that bring us the best health outcomes in our day.
Mhm.
And again, this is a diet of natural foods, minimally processed, dominated, again, by vegetables, by clean and sustainably sourced animal products, whole grains, beans, nuts, seeds, some fruit. And the good news is they claim that, the average overweight person eating to full satiation on natural foods should lose between 5 and 10 pounds a month and keep it off as long as they consume a diet of whole natural foods.
Yeah.
This is true for most people. And again, we have to be careful with this because I don't know, an average overweight person, you might be dealing with insulin resistance or diabetes, right? Because most people, if they're overweight, they are insulin resistant. They might not be diabetic, but they're insulin resistant.
Right.
This might not be true across the board for every single overweight person, but you will see that weight gain stops and things begin to stabilize before weight loss begins.
Mhm.
That is a good indication. If you stop gaining weight, eating minimally processed and unprocessed natural foods, you will see the weight gain stop. And as the inflammation repairs and you begin to go in a different direction metabolically, you'll see the scale begin to move. So
Yeah.
again, it's something that is unique for each person based on their own metabolisms, aka level of insulin resistance or insulin sensitivity. And this changes throughout life. So I'm guilty of remembering, oh, when I was this age, I lost this much in this time period, and I did this and this. That was then, right? And then,
Right.
life on life's terms happens and life changes and gives you a lot of lemons that you have to make lemonade out of. Pretty soon, you're not able to process life the same way. So you have to, your body changes and the stresses of life change your metabolism. They change the way you store fat. They change the way that foods affect you. They change the way that you can process calories. All of it changes. So as we age, so we have to be very, I think, open to flexing with those changes. And I was never that person. I was always that person of, oh, I'm going to be this, I'm going to eat a certain way the rest of my life. And I found the key for me and I'm done.
Mhm.
And life has other plans.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Joke was on me.
Yeah. Yeah, my 32-year-old daughter was just telling me this morning, she's like, I just can't get away with anything anymore. Oh, really? Wait till you're
Wait till
61, honey.
wait till 40. Yeah.
Oh, I said that to her. Wait till 40. It's a big eye opener when 40 hits, sister.
Yeah.
I love all these talking points and I agree with everything you're saying. And I love Jamie saying too that there's no fat deers in the wild because they are eating like they were designed to eat. And I loved your statement about as long as our mechanisms of satiation can only work properly if we're eating foods consistent with our design. That one hit me right in the chest. It's so simple. It really is just simple. And those few sentences sum up America's health crisis. We were not meant to live off French fries, Captain Crunch, Dunkin' Donuts, and Dairy Queen. And
Ha.
these foods don't make you full, they make you want. I'm doing want
Yeah.
in air quotes.
Food should also
They
be in air quotes there too, by the
yeah,
way.
yeah,
The
more.
word
They
food.
just want more. That all they do is they make you want more, and they are created to make you want more. The brain wasn't wired to handle that level of stimulation. I mean, that is incoming to the brain, that level of stimulation from those ultra processed foods. So focusing on portion control versus portion content is the key to weight loss. I know I'm at my best when I'm existing on these single ingredient, non-processed foods. And I know I sound like a broken record, but it's so true. Yet it's so difficult to achieve in the environment in which we live. We are just surrounded by cues and triggers, which makes life just so much more challenging.
Yeah, totally. Here's the deal. The environment is set up. So I guess what helped me bring it home finally after years of struggling in the environment that I was in, right? Which we're all in, by the way. I was not in my own
Yeah.
environment. I was in this world like everyone. What really brought it home was that the environment that we live in is not set up for health. The environment that we live in, and this is now worldwide. There were some countries that were slower to adopt this, Americanized way of eating, and they all were healthier for many centuries or decades, until they adopt our way of eating, and now they're all as sick as we are. I'm looking at you, China and Japan.
Yeah. We're set
But
up to make money. That's
exactly,
what we're
we're
set
not set
up
up for
for.
health. We're set up for capitalism and money.
Mhm.
And I am not against capitalism. I'm just saying that you have to look at it as the environment, the way that
Cost.
you're being marketed to is all about making money.
Yeah.
So if you want health, you have to go completely 180 degrees against the environment that you're in.
Yeah. Yeah. And can I say something real quick before you move on about, yeah, we're set up for capitalism, but that capitalism is going to bankrupt us. I mean, do you see the
Oh,
irony in all this?
it's totally,
It's going
totally.
to
That's
destroy our country.
That's beautiful the way you just said it. It's so true. It is the capitalism, which is what do they say? And if you were worried about weight loss, you lost recovery, but if you focus on recovery, you'll lose the weight. Same
Yeah.
thing. Focus on money, you're losing your health.
That's why we're trying so hard to get some rules and regulations around with these processed food companies about what we're putting in our foods. I was listening to another podcast with Dr. Nicole Avina, and she was just on a panel recently trying to get some of these regulations in place. She said, if these companies want to put 50 pounds of sugar in a candy bar, they can. There's literally zero regulations on. So yes, they're going to capitalize and get people hooked and addicted, but the healthcare system literally is going to crumble because we're not going to be able to take care of the people. And it was
We can't now.
Dr. Casey Means who was saying,
Yes.
is it one in two people are diabetic or pre-diabetic?
Mhm.
I'm pretty
Yes,
sure I'm right
50%.
on that
Yeah,
statistic.
you are.
So
It
we've
used to be
got
40, it used to be 40%, and now it's flipped over to 51.
Yeah, so that we see where the money's going. It's literally you can watch the money go to watch the healthcare system, and the capitalism is working, but at the same time, yeah, it's going to destroy us.
It's really sad. And again, but PS, Paige and I, this is not a political stance. But there is an interview with Casey Means and her brother Callie. And these Callie is or I don't know if he still is, but he was a lobbyist for big food and big pharma, and now is on the other side of it, right? Lobbying for regulations against big food and big pharma. And his sister Casey Means founded Levels organization, Levels biohacking
I
company.
think they're together on that.
Oh, are they? Okay.
I think so.
And she was a Stanford educated and very, very well regarded.
Top of her class.
Wasn't she neurosurgeon?
I know it was the neck up,
Neck
but
up. So she was very highly regarded in her field of medicine, and she chose to leave the entire thing behind because she saw the paradigm that it was essentially creating wealth and totally obliterating health. And she got out of it, and she started went her own way and asked the right questions and stepped out of the paradigm at the cost of probably, I'm sure, almost $1 million in school loans, and with no way of paying them back. And at first, and she decided that no, she wasn't going to do it. She went her other way. And there is an interview with, this is why I say it's not political, but Tucker Carlson. And again, it's not a political statement, but the man interviews this brother and sister duo who wrote a book all around, good energy. And this whole theme of health promotion over profit promotion or profit creation. And they exposed, and it's a 2+ hour interview. And I don't think I've listened to it any less than 3 times. It totally will change your entire way of looking at the world we live in every single way.
I ordered her book and to no surprise, it's back ordered. It's taking a long time. I'm sure they are just flooded now with orders, but we'll have to do a book review on that
Yeah,
once I
for
get
sure.
that.
I would be down for that. Yeah, it's my point is, guys, and please do, I don't care if you know, Big Bird is interviewing these two people. Watch it. Watch it. It's not about who's interviewing them. He really does a fantastic job. He does not shove any agendas down anyone's throat.
No,
He
I
is
don't think they ever even touch on politics.
exactly, and Tucker Carlson does such a good job of being the you know, the bimbo in the room, so to speak, right? He
Yeah.
had no idea. Has no idea before this interview of what Big Food and Big Pharma are doing to our country, and a country he loves, and a
Mhm.
country that Casey and Callie means love.
Yeah.
And when he asks the questions that anyone watching also asks, right? And Tucker does a great job of voicing those questions. These two very, very well educated and highly experienced professionals are able to give answers that will make your skin crawl.
Yeah. 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 He approaches the questions, it's just with simple curiosity.
Yes, right. I don't even think he uses the word Trump the whole time. Just FYI, it really is not.
No,
It's not.
he's not talked about.
Where were we?
Shifting gears here.
Yes. All right. So in simple terms, you know, these foods, right? They're highly addictive. Like any addiction, any addiction is progressive. We know this. A heroin addict starts at a certain level of heroin and progresses up. And the same is true in addictive foods. And again, I'm not comparing foods to heroin. Heroin is way more addictive, but I am saying that there are certain foods, processed and ultra processed, namely, that we need more and more of to get the same feelings from, right? That's that deep, deep high hit of dopamine that these foods create. And again, this tolerance buildup hijacks our brains. So when we repeatedly consume processed and ultra processed foods, these dopamine receptors that pump out huge bursts of dopamine really become overstimulated. And we know that when anything is overstimulated, whether it's plants, animals, 5-year-olds, anything, they literally shut down. They need more and more and more to have the same response. And eventually, like a 5-year-old, they just shut down. They can't do it anymore, and they need a break. The same thing is true for our receptors in our brains. So again, when these pleasure pathways that are assaulted again and again and again by more and more and more and more levels of you know, calories that we consume from processed and ultra processed foods, um, we can't get to a point where we feel satiated because
Right.
our nervous system has upregulated to a point where we need so much of that dopamine release and other neurochemical release in our brains and bodies that we cannot control, and we're driven by something that is almost, it's not, but it feels like almost supernatural,
Yeah.
and it becomes something that is outside of ourselves.
Yeah.
Supernatural, not in the ghost sense, supernatural of outside of the norm of human biology.
Extreme. Mhm.
So when we think about like the outcomes, right? What's the cascade of this? The outcome of this is we are totally hijacked in our brains.
Yeah.
We are acting like addicts with food. We can't stop thinking about it. We can't stop looking for it. We can't stop seeking it. We can't stop planning for it. We just can't stop. And when we start eating it, we certainly can't stop ourselves. And again, before you know it, it's this spiral, right? Where you're trying to fight your way out, and you have a brain that literally is working against you, not because you programmed it that way, because the addictive foods and the responses in our body doing exactly what they were designed to do programmed it that way.
Yeah. I agree with you. And when you said heroin's more addictive than food, yes, but we're not exposed to heroin
Exactly.
24/7.
Exactly.
So that's therein,
God.
that's the problem. So yeah, this was also true for me too. And when I was still in the sugar, by day 10 of trying to white knuckle my way out of it, I could put it on the calendar that a binge was right around the corner, but it was always to get me out of the pain of the cravings that Jamie was so well describing just then. I didn't want to seek pleasure. I just needed out of the pain because I was going through detox. And ironically, most people assume that people with addiction are doing so for pleasure, but when reality, they are just seeking relief from the pain and
That's right.
running from cravings or withdrawal. It can be a beast. I mean, it's horrible. You just feel like you're coming out of your skin, which is why so many fail, and recovery support groups like Real Food Recovery are really essential. We do tremendous work in this area and help
Yeah.
a lot of people to get over that hump. But the real problem is that since we need to eat more of these foods to get more of that same pleasure feeling, just like Jamie was describing, how drugs need increasing the amount of their substances of choice to achieve the same high, then these cycles of cravings and consumption can lead to this host of health problems, which obesity is at the top of the list, along with diabetes and heart disease. And then you're in this vicious cycle of gaining weight and in order to satiate the cravings, and it can be incredibly difficult to break. Do you want to weigh in on any of that?
No, I've kind of covered that. So I know it's hard to break free when we're caught up in it, and I get it. And again, for me, it really, was all about switching to a diet of full on processed foods, and that helped a lot. Again, it took time for the addictive responses and stimulus in the brain to shift. But as an added bonus, these foods are, again, ultra non-processed foods are low in calorie density and high in nutrients. So what happened for me very quickly was my body began to be very loud, got louder and louder and louder about what it needed. So
Yeah.
if I was craving something and I was eating whole unprocessed foods and I had a craving for something, by the way, I never craved Doritos or Butterfingers. I craved something that, again, was there was a specific connection to it, some kind of a nutrient, some kind of macro or micronutrient. And my latest thing was listening to my body craving more of the building blocks of for me, it was animal protein. And I craved the animal protein after I started to eat it a little bit more. My body spent, God, almost 2 months just completely consuming animal protein without any kind of looking back. Like I was just unabashedly consuming it. And then my body said, you know what? Okay, you're giving it animal protein, giving some micronutrients from plants, and now we need some fats. So it's like my body signals someone turned up the volume on my body signals, and I was able to clearly hear and feel what my body needed. And when I gave my body that, again, it's an adjustment, and some days are different than others. But I'm finding that it's much easier to listen to my body instead of going through the noise of all the processed crap. I couldn't hear my body what it really needed.
Good point. Good point. And we know that of great importance is to bring up the point that when we are consisting on a diet of these high fat, high sugar processed diets, our taste buds become insensitive to the pleasure of these whole natural foods. But to follow up with good news, our taste buds have the ability to readapt to these single ingredient foods within a few weeks. And isn't that awesome? Thank you, body, for taking such good care of us. We appreciate you. If you think about it, you are really only a few weeks away from being able to enjoy healthy fare and support your health with minimal taste sacrifice. And it's crazy to think about how our taste buds can change to support how we were engineered to eat. Even after abuse, they can recalibrate. I now crave the single ingredient foods. I get a whopper of a bellyache if I ever veer too far off course. And most of the time, I even eat my salads without any salad dressing on it. I like it just fine, and I love the actual taste of these raw vegetables. They're actually even sweet to me.
Mhm. Yep, very common. Yeah, for sure. I have the same experience where it's not that I eat salads without dressing, but I don't like things are too sweet or too hyper palatable. And if I get a burst of dopamine and for me, I describe it as bells and whistles going off in my brain.
Yeah,
If bells and whistles go off in my brain, even if it's something that is unprocessed, uh, I don't touch it.
yeah.
So,
Well,
and there are some things that'll surprise me and other things that I would assume bells and whistles would go off and they don't.
mm-hmm.
So again, this list of keys for success is in the pleasure trap really aligns with what we teach in real food recovery. So there's a huge belief that Dr. Doug Lisle and Dr. Alan Goldhamer share, and it's all around the environment is your biggest predictor of success. So if we think about our environment setting ourselves up for success, that's where it starts. And again, you may have to have a talk with your family to help with cooperation, perhaps in finding their own space for junk food. So Paige, we talked about this before. I live in a home with two other people, one of them my husband. So it's pretty easy for me to get my husband on board with things. But this latest shift that I've had to make nutritionally for my health, I've had to shift my eating away from a lot of natural, unprocessed carbohydrate sources and more towards the animal-based sources. That seems to be where my body needs to be right now. And I knew having single ingredient, unprocessed carb sources in the house would derail me. So I just recently had to go through and clean everything out. A way of life that my husband was with me on for 4.5 years, and he's like, wait, what? Like, where are we
What are we doing now?
Yeah, and he's like, wait, you're throwing that away? You're throwing that away? That's supposed to be healthy, and it's like, it's not about healthy or not. It's about, my body does better on these other foods now, and I'm not going to have this stuff in the cabinet to tempt myself. Or even just have it taking up space. If I can donate it, I donate it. If it can't be donated, it goes in the trash. And I had to just recently do this whole clean out again. And and you know what? I do it when nobody's around. Because if the foods get out of the house when nobody's around, nobody's fighting you on it.
You're right.
So
no, I know. Yeah, I'm lucky that at my house, my husband has his own cabinet of trouble and I don't go in there. And since our kids are grown and gone, I'm not battling with their junk food. That's very hard with young moms.
I feel for moms that do that.
Me
Well, I
too.
feel that they need to set better boundaries, but I digress.
Yeah. But so I try to keep a clean environment. I think that's key for me staying on track. And we have heard often that you need to work harder on your environment than you do on yourself.
Yep, I totally, absolutely agree. So again, planning and preparing is very key, and this is a must. And again, I consider that pantry clean out or refrigerator clean out part of the preparation. And of course, if you have a successful week from starting on Sunday to Saturday, my successful week, if I start on Sunday, it actually doesn't start on Sunday. It starts the Friday before or the Saturday before, the day before. Because that my success happens at the grocery store or at the farmer's market. That is where my success is lined up. And for me, it's even starting out earlier in the week because I put in my orders with my local farmers.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah. So I talk about how what I'm eating today, I plan 10 days earlier. So the planning and preparing is huge for me. And also when I take my food with me, when I go to the office or wherever I go as part of my daily routine, I'm always taking my pre-made food with me. It's my safety net. And I have gone to the time, trouble, and expense to prep it. I am going to darn well use that. I'm way too lazy, cheap to let that go to waste. So it's like gold to me, and I don't want to get thrown off track. It's such importance to me that I take my food wherever, vacation, wherever, cars, trips, movies, office, etc. I've even bring a snack in the car with me before I go to the grocery store. If I'm feeling wobbly and I know there's going to be a lot of temptations in there and smells and sights and things like that. Or if I'm running around and I'm going to be out for a few hours and so many cues and trigger. I mean, I can't go to Hobby Lobby without having candy bars in my face. So I just keep my safety net with me everywhere I go because I'm aware that processed food addiction is on high alert, especially when I'm hyperstimulated like that.
Well, and remember, we're in an environment where money is the goal, not health.
Yeah.
So what helps
candy
me
bars at the checkout.
Yeah, when I see that, and for me, my Hobby Lobby is probably a pet store. So when I go to, the pet supply store to get stuff for my dogs, I know I'm going to be barraged by it.
Isn't that incredible?
And I have to remember, okay, this is not I'm in an environment that promotes money, not in capitalism, not promoting health. So
Yeah.
if I want an environment that promotes health, I have places I can go, and none of them are, stores.
Yeah. Agree.
So again, preparation, if you're not able to prepare food yourself, I get it, right? People are busy, they have schedules, they have kids, they have requirements in life. Hire someone. It is not that expensive to hire someone part-time. I think the next big thing that you're going to see, what we've seen in our lifetime pages, we've seen a growth in the number of personal housekeepers, right?
Yeah.
There are people that come to your home, my home, that clean every couple of weeks. They come in, they do an overhaul. I believe that the next iteration of that is going to be people that are coming in to help do food prep. And I think that maybe I should start a company, ha ha ha. But that would be, I think, the next thing that we're all touching on is the need to outsource some of these things that keep us safe.
Yeah. Do you have time to talk about sleep? You want to talk about
other than just it's super important and it's critical to success. Again, people I think underestimate. I think sleep is as critical to recovery success
Totally. Don't you think it touches every area of recovery?
For sure, just like food does.
Yeah. So you want to talk about anything else, caffeine or exercise, anything?
I mean, I think that neither of those two things, well, caffeine is subjective, and different strokes for different folks, and also be very aware of your overall health if you're consuming caffeine, because if you have adrenal issues, or if you've got kidney issues, or if you've got other issues around addiction, you might overuse caffeine. It can be an addictive substance. So Paige and I don't really support caffeine use for that reason. And as far as, think about, caffeine is not a substitution for sleep. Sleep should come first. Food should come first.
Yeah.
And then exercise really is, again, it can be for our head, but it also can be to promote healthy longevity. So bone density and flexibility and stability as we age.
Yeah. So I'll tie things up with last couple of points and that they bring out in the book, and that is breaking free of the pleasure trap is not about a life of denied pleasure and self-sacrifice. It's not about adopting a program of self-righteous abstention. It's really about breaking free from processed foods, allowing one to pursue worthwhile goals, and it opens up the door for true health and happiness that's free from any level of addiction or reaction from dependence on processed foods. And I can't think of a food I would be willing to ever go back to give up the life I have. It just totally wouldn't be worth it. But if you want to find out more about us and what we do to help people in this process, you can find us at realfoodrecovery4u.com. That's the number 4 and the letter U, and we hope to see you there. Thanks, Jamie. Great podcast.
Thanks, guys. See you soon.
See you later. Bye-bye.